your colleagues watched the results last night and thought, okay, maybe the message is we've swung too far to the left here.
Democratic candidate Terry McAuliffe lost his race for governor in Virginia last night, and already some in the media and some Democrats are blaming the left. Somehow blaming the left for a corporate Democrat losing his race. So let me just get into this. It is so ridiculous that I'm going to have to laugh, despite the fact that this is very depressing to see the same narratives again and again, completely full of crap. But let's start here. Blake Hounshell here, who is, I believe, New York Times politics editor, writing here, some in Biden land are already asking themselves if the president has allowed himself to be tugged too far to the left while in office, and those voices are likely to get louder now. What has Biden done that is too far left? What has he done at all? Let alone, what has he done that's too far left? He didn't pass $15 an hour that he said he was going to do, didn't get the $2,000 checks that he said he was going to do, hasn't done universal pre-K, hasn't done anything in the budget bill, whether reversing the Trump tax cuts, whether it's child care, whether it's paid leave. I mean, go down the list. Nothing has been done that is actually to the left. So how can you possibly be blaming the left? But of course, that's what they're doing. Manchin here, of course, we don't expect any different from Joe Manchin. Manchin says, unbelievable Virginia results validate concerns over spending package. Yes, the reason Democrats did not show up last night is because they're worried about Democrats spending too much. Democratic voters don't want you to spend too much. Paid leave? No, sounds a little expensive. Despite the fact that I'll show you later, every single poll, the vast majority of Americans are in support of what is in the budget bill. But Manchin has to play his games because he is a corporate Democrat that also personally benefits from coal money and, of course, is against any provision against coal or any real help for Americans. More here. Tim Kaine tells reporters Democrats in Congress hurt Terry McAuliffe, calls out purist demands on Build Back Better. I asked him to what extent he faults McAuliffe. Quote, you know there's a million reasons behind any victory or loss, but that's not productive right now. So wait. You're willing to blame so-called purists that are looking for crazy things like paid family leave, maternity leave, but you're not willing to blame the guy that actually ran the race. Remarkable. Polling. As I've shown a million times, here's another link. I'll link to all the stuff below the video, of course, on YouTube under the description box. But you see here, from Invest in America and Data for Progress is just the latest data underscoring the Build Back Better agenda's consistent popularity. 61% of voters, including 54% of independents, support passing this agenda into law, and a majority believe that when passed, the plan will create more opportunity for Americans and millions of jobs, including for Americans without college degrees. And it's the same across the board. So ALG Research, similar results in terms of support for the Build Back Better agenda. Navigator, NPR, Harvard, CBS News, AP, Vox, Data for Progress, Quinnipiac, all polling shows a majority of voters support what is in the Build Back Better agenda because voters realize what is in there will actually benefit their lives. Now, let's get to the media. So, to my surprise, you're going to see here these two senators reject, or at least kind of partially reject the question here. But I'm going to play this clip, and you're seeing the kind of narrative that the media is trying to push here.
Some centrists, I heard Democrats, your colleagues, watched the results last night and thought, okay, maybe the message is we've swung too far to the left here. Now I'm sort of hesitant about voting for a $1.7 trillion package. I'm going to be on the record. I'm up for re-election 1 year from today. What do you say to them this morning?
I'd say to the extent you're worried about inflation, for example, one of the reasons my friend and colleague, Senator Manchin, has cited for hesitation about the Build Back Better bill, it is designed to address not, far left priorities, but things that matter to the average working family.
I need results that I can show the American people that Congress can deliver.
But is it results that voters want? Because if progressive policies are so popular, why did they elect a Republican governor?
The labels progressive, conservative mean less these days than ever before. What people want is to see the pandemic going away, life going back to normal, the economy recovering, not only roads, bridges, ports and airports, but also child care, the tax credit for children, real results in climate change. These kinds of deliverables are what Congress has to make a priority.
What absolutely ridiculous questions, especially the second one, where the reporter there is questioning, do voters actually want results? If voters actually support progressive policy, then why didn't they vote for a Democrat who didn't run on any progressive policy? Like, how can you possibly be blaming progressive policy when the guy that lost did not run on said policy? But it doesn't matter. This is the normal framing they're used to putting out there. This is how they operate. This is how they think. They can't think any other way. So if Terry McAuliffe loses, it's the fault of progressives. If he wins, it's, oh, hey, look, Terry McAuliffe won because he's a moderate, because he's a conservative Democrat, because he's a wealthy businessman. Democrats got to run more wealthy businessmen. But he lost, so it's the fault of progressives. Can you imagine if Terry McAuliffe won, would they be blaming progressives? Oh, Terry McAuliffe won because progressives on the left are pushing for a bold budget plan. Like, of course they would not be doing that. But he loses, it's their fault. It is so ridiculous, so blatant, so out there. And I gotta say, I was actually encouraged by the responses there from the senators, especially Chris Coons, who is incredibly conservative. He wasn't blaming progressives there in his answer. He was trying to take it back to basically, these are issues that we need passed to actually help people, because they understand if they want to win, they need to actually deliver to people. People need to feel, voters need to feel that their lives have improved since Democrats have been in power. When even Chris Coons understands that, then clearly not the fault of progressives. You actually have to pass this agenda. But it's also, in places like Axios, of course, voters punish Democrats amid left drift, which is really weird to frame it this way when, as the DSA points out here, the Democratic Socialists of America, on election day, we had 32 nationally endorsed local candidates and 5 ballot initiatives. 7 races are still outstanding, but we had a 69% win rate last night. Sidewalk socialism, a grassroots movement to transform our cities and beyond, is rising. So they had a 69% win rate last night. The DSA did. Yet somehow Democrats or voters are punishing Democrats for being too far left. It's the same narratives every time. And these people have no data at all to back up what they're saying, ever. And also, to my surprise, House Democrats here put paid family leave back into the bill. So maybe this is actually one case where, while certain Democrats and certain members of the media are trying to push a particular anti-progressive narrative, the actual leadership or parts of leadership and members here understand that they need to actually deliver for people. So paid family leave right now is back in the bill, even though Joe Manchin is trying to fight that. But they understand that people need to actually feel some real help. Also here, I'm going to reference just who you should be reading. So Common Dreams here always has great analysis and news that is rooted in objective reality. So here from Richard Eskow, writing, corporate Democratic so-called centrist lost these races, but they'll never admit it. Instead of representing a party that had scored some wins for working people, Democratic candidates ran as members of a party that had squabbled for 10 months and accomplished little while controlling all 3 branches of the federal government. And he uses Terry McAuliffe's page here as an example of just how poorly he ran his campaign, saying when it comes to voters and their needs, these kinds of Democrats just didn't seem to care. Those few voters who read McAuliffe's webpage, for example, were promised, quote, targeted investments in workforce training and development, partnering with businesses and our educational institution to reskill and retrain Virginians, and reimagining our K-12 education system so that every child has access to a world-class education and is workforce ready upon graduation. Blah, blah, blah. Yeah, exactly. Blah, blah, blah. These are not very specific progressive policies. This is the same BS they've been saying for decades. And they keep losing with this BS. You have to actually promise some real help. Otherwise, people are not going to vote for you because they're not going to feel any actual change in their lives. Last thing here, I just want to point out how horrible the Democratic Party in Virginia in particular is. So let me just show you this. This is a a mailer that went out for the Republican victor in Virginia, Glenn Youngkin. And here he is tied to Donald Trump. So Donald Trump endorsed Glenn Youngkin. Wow, looks like this guy's a real pro-Trumper. So obviously you would think, you're going to get the Trump vote out there in Virginia. Of course, the GOP want to put this out there. Well, it wasn't them. In fact, that was from the Democratic Party of Virginia. The Democratic Party of Virginia, thinking that Trump is very unpopular, even though he isn't. He's actually incredibly popular with more conservative voters. They put this out there in the attempt to hurt him. So this actually benefited Youngkin because he was trying to remove himself from Trump. He didn't bring Trump in to try and campaign with him. He tried to separate himself from Trump. So he was able to get those voters that do exist that are going to swing from Democrats to Republicans because they feel like they're not being, listened to. So he'll get that vote. But at the same time, if you have this mailer out there, that's also encouraging the Trump voter to go out. So he was able to get both sides of the Republican base out to vote for him with the help of the Democratic Party in Virginia. Just historically terrible. This Democratic Party, and the Democratic Party in general, is largely garbage, does not know how to actually fight, doesn't know how to run on policies that are actually popular. If it wasn't McAuliffe, it was somebody else who supported these progressive policies, like in New Jersey, where that Democrat there had Bernie Sanders come in. It looks like he's going to win, even though it's going to be a slim victory. But he's a lot closer to victory than Terry McAuliffe is. So you had there an example of someone that is a bit more to the left of Terry McAuliffe, potentially winning his race, tying himself to Bernie Sanders. Meanwhile, Terry McAuliffe, incredibly conservative, a businessman, a wealthy businessman, did not run any real progressive policy, losing his race in dramatic fashion. Yet, it's the fault of progressives. Absolutely ridiculous.